Right, ready? Okay, now we're ready. All righty. Welcome everybody to the April 16, 2024 Landmark Preservation Commission meeting. I am bringing it to order at 1 p.m. The first thing that we like to do during our meetings is introduce ourselves. I'm Julie Johnson. I'm a Historic Preservation Project Manager, and I was nominated by the community at large. Larry, you want to start?
I'm Larry Sykes. I'm an architect and I was nominated by History Colorado.
I'm Ann Wattenberg. I'm an architect and I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
Hello, I'm Gary Petrie. I'm an architect and I was nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
Hi, I'm George Dennis, retired law enforcement, nominated by History Colorado.
I'm Nick Fusianis. I'm an architect and developer, and I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
And I'm Erica Borzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant, nominated by the community at large.
And I'm Brittany Bryant, Denver Landmark Preservation staff.
Thanks, everybody. So the first thing we want to talk about are audio tips for those of you joining us virtually. For better sound quality, we encourage you to download Zoom on your desktop, laptop, tablet, or mobile device. You can click the audio settings to bring up an additional menu, add a background noise suppression, test your speaker and microphone, and adjust their maximum output volumes. For presenters or public commenters, when it is your turn to speak, to mute or unmute, you can click on the microphone icon at the bottom of the screen. You can expand the menu next to the microphone that will reveal additional options. You can select your speaker and microphone devices. You can test your microphone and speakers and adjust their maximum output volumes. If you still have audio challenges, you can switch to phone for audio. Okay. All right, the first item of business is our meeting records for approval. We have March 19, 2024 and April 2, 2024. Does anybody have any changes, corrections, any concerns? All right, do I hear a motion from the floor?
I'll move to approve the meeting records for the meetings of March 19th and April 2nd, 2024.
Thank you, Erica. Do I hear a second?
Second.
George has seconded it. All in favor of accepting meeting minutes as presented?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. We thank you to staff for taking care of that. All right, at the beginning of the meeting, we like to set aside public comment period. And this is where members of the public have up to 2 minutes each for comments about historic preservation in general. This does not include any comments that are associated with specific projects that we're going to be hearing later today. To speak, if you're virtual, you can click the hand raise button in Zoom. You could dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if joining by phone, or you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you are having difficulty with either of those options. Would anyone here wish to make a public comment about historic preservation in general? Okay, great. Do we have anybody in our virtual audience that would like to make a comment? No. Okay, all right. Then hearing no comments, then let's move on to the design review process. We generally, this is where we see the consent agenda items, but there is nothing on the consent agenda today. So we are moving straight to the design review process. I will announce the design review items on agenda in order by address. The commission members can announce any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest. Staff will introduce the application and make a recommendation, and commissioners can question staff. The applicant will have 10 minutes to tell us about their project, and commissioners can question the applicant. There is a public comment period during the design review process directly after the applicant's presentation, and each person that wishes to make a comment will be given 2 minutes per person. Anybody here in the audience can just raise their hand and indicate that you'd like to speak. And if you're joining us virtually and you're not part of the applicant team, please click the hand raise button on your Zoom, and for those calling via phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. If you're having difficulty with either of those options, you can email us at landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number. Staff can clarify if necessary. The commission will deliberate, and then the commission will make a motion and vote. And Just so you know, the LPC can only consider information that is included in the application materials on the LPC meeting website. All right, we actually only have one design review item today, and that is 2024-COA-198 at 2821 Welton Street in the Five Points District. And Crystal is our staff person.
Great, thank you, Julie.
Of course.
So this property is located at 2821 Welton Street in the Five Points Cultural Historic District. This application is for phase 2 design details for a new infill 6-story building. The proposed infill structure will be mostly residential with some commercial tenants on the ground floor. On the left here are existing photos of the vacant lot and surroundings. And on the right, you can see the proposed site plan for the new structure. The structure is set back 5 feet for right-of-way dedication, as you can see here, and will have a central entry to serve both residents and commercial tenants at the ground floor. Parking is located at the first floor only and is accessed from the alley in a secured garage. So here are just 2 of the floor plans. The second floor on the left, and you can see it has that new central courtyard and some terraces for some of the units. I've also included the 3rd floor on the right with additional rear terraces. I included this floor so you could see the terraces on the rear alley that will require an administrative adjustment at the parapet. There's also another slide at the end showing the requested administrative adjustment, so we'll discuss it more then. So here's the proposed front facade along Welton Street. The building massing has been articulated to have a 3-story brick and cast stone building base with 3 stories above inset along Welton Street, proposed to be clad in fiber cement panels with vertical trim, following the vertical lines of the pilasters of the base. The 6th floor parapet will be a glass fiber reinforced concrete to liquid cast stone. As you can see, the proposed materials are at the left side of the screen here. The building base will have brick bonds and patterns, a defined cornice, transoms, and cast stone pilasters to provide details that are typical of the district. The upper floors have less ornamentation, but have typical window rhythms and patterns, meeting design guideline 4.27. Design guideline 4.48 states to use materials that appear similar in scale, color, texture, and finish to those seen on contributing buildings and within the surrounding context. Staff did have some concerns with the warm gray of the fiber cement panels at the upper floors, contrasting with the dark red and black brick colors at the base. However, it is a simple combination of materials and may be appropriate as the floors are set back from the brick facades. The proposed structure will be approximately 73 feet in height to the top of the 6th floor, with additional massing at the center of the roof for elevators, stairs, trash chute overruns, as well as for rooftop access and use. The standing solar covers that were part of the phase 1 approval have been eliminated from this design submittal, so that's why you don't see them today. The phase 1 approval also previously had an entry ramp at the central entrance of the street, but it appears that that has also been eliminated from the phase 2 design, though the overall design remains largely the same. So here's the south side elevation facing towards 28th Street. Here you can see the upper floor setback of 10 feet along Welton Street, as well as the protected district setbacks along the alley elevation, which create a step back elevation at the rear. Articulation techniques continue at this elevation, meeting design guideline 4.22, with the brick wrapping the side elevation from the front for 27 feet 10 inches before transitioning to the red CMD block that ties in with the main brick color for the rest of the lower floors. Here you can see how the rooftop overruns and mechanical equipment is significantly set back from the front facade. And then here's that north side elevation. Here you can see that the windows and balconies continue at these side elevations, adding to the articulation and avoiding blank walls on these side elevations. And then here's the rear alley elevation. Due to the building's proximity to a protected district, as defined by the Denver zoning code, there are several step backs of the building's rear facade along the alley. This facade does have a simple, more modern design at this elevation. And then here's the roof plan showing what the overrun locations are, as well as where future amenities will be located for residents. The proposed rooftop amenity area will be limited in program and will be set back a minimum of 5 feet from all sides, meeting design guideline 4.21. So here's the detail for the new main entrance on Welton Street. The central entry will have that main entrance set back almost 3 feet, 4 inches off the street. The main entry will be slightly recessed and is framed with a central black brick corbelline detail all around here and all the way around that central entry. So here's the detail for the main storefronts facing onto Welton Street. These are proposed to be multi-glide doors with a metal railing, since the finished floor will be slightly raised off the street. Street level is defined by these large storefront windows, creating a strong data line, meeting design guidelines 4.37 and 4.38. So here you can see the proposed glass solar balcony railings that are proposed at the upper floors and side elevations. Design guideline 4.44 states that balcony railings should not significantly block the visibility of facade areas used for transparency. Staff did have some concerns about the glass solar railing, as it may block visibility of the facade where used. However, the solar railings are only proposed at the side elevations and upper floors above the brick building base. The proposed solar railings will have built-in solar properties that generate electricity for the units. The applicants did reduce the opacity of the proposed railings to try to better meet transparency. Intent statement 4AG states to encourage the use of innovative, high quality and sustainable materials. Solar railings have not previously been used in the district, but may be a new, innovative and more sustainable railing solution that may be acceptable in this instance and at these less visible locations on the structure. And then here's another detail just showing the glass reinforced concrete detail for the pilasters that they also call cast stone at the building base, as well as sawtooth brick detailing between windows on the base and the corbelline details. Here are all the proposed windows for the structure. The proposed windows will be casements with a transom. The windows on the upper floors will also be casement. All window glazing will be clear, meeting guideline 4.42. However, design guideline 4.43 states that openings should be designed to provide a depth of detail and reflect typical patterns found within the cultural district and surrounding context. The storefront systems are recessed into the facade. However, the upper story windows are only proposed to be recessed into the facade by 1 inch, as you can see in this detail over here on the left. So staff suggests adding a condition to require a minimum 2-inch inset for all windows. And then finally, the applicants are requesting an administrative adjustment to the upper story setback requirement at the alley elevation. The applicants are requesting to encroach into the upper story setback at the 27-foot height, which is here, along the alley for the 2-foot cast stone parapet at the 3rd floor terraces. The encroachment on the setback is for the parapet to be functioning as a guardrail required for safety and functionality of these terraces. The Denver zoning code states that the commission must find that the development conforming to the requirements of the zoning code would have an adverse impact upon the historic character of the district or a historic structure. The code's prescribed setback would hinder the proposed architectural expression and ornamental detailing of the corners, as seen on this slide in the yellow and red area. This element is important for relating to the historic fabric of the district, characterized by horizontal banding, projecting articulation, and strong roof parapets. Additionally, this encroachment is minor, less than 2 feet, and is integrated into the building massing and design. Therefore, staff is supportive of the administrative adjustment, since developing a design meeting the requirements of the zoning code would have an adverse impact upon the historic district, as the design would have to be adjusted in a way that would not match the surrounding context in either 5 Points or Curtis Park to the rear, which abuts the district from the alley elevation. Additionally, I did receive one letter asking for denial or postponement of the administrative adjustment from a neighbor in Curtis Park, and 2 letters of support for the administrative adjustment, one from 5 Points Business Improvement District Design Review Chair, and one from another Curtis Park neighbor along the alley. These letters all should have been received by the commission prior to this meeting. I did also receive an additional comment letter this morning, but was unable to forward it per our public comment policy. However, I did email the citizen a link to today's meeting if they would like to submit testimony during today's public comment period. And then here are just some perspective views of the proposal. At the top left is that alley elevation, and then the front is the right side. And then finally, just some isometrics. So staff supports the current design, believes it meets the design guidelines and fits with the context of the district. Therefore, staff is recommending approval with one condition, that all the windows have a minimum 2-inch inset.
Okay, great. Crystal, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Crystal? No? Okay.
I do. The area where the encroachment is occurring, what does that band relate to in terms of the historic district? I mean,
It's
does it
more of
relate
just
to another
architectural
cornice
banding.
or?
It's more that it's just continuing the horizontal banding that's on the proposed structure and that's found in the district. So it's on this corner, but it would,
But if it was 2 feet lower, I mean,
I
that's
think it would end right at that line, so it would just cut it off and lower it. And then I don't think they would be able to use the patios, so they would have to cut those out. Because they wouldn't have a tall enough terrace wall.
So it's really driving that location is using it as a terrace wall, not necessarily relating it to some other character defining feature in the district. Because that, as far as banding is concerned,
I mean,
the
they could
banding
do-
could be anywhere as long as it relates to a historically located banding somewhere, right? I guess I'm wondering
I guess
why,
like it could be railing or it could be the CMU brick goes all the way up, but I think it interrupts the detail. I think it would change it, and they're trying to match kind of the architectural feature that's there. So you could also ask them more about it during
Okay, thank you.
presentation.
Great. Anybody else? Question? Okay, perfect. Crystal, thank you very much. The applicant's here.
Yes.
Would you like to come up?
Sure.
So you will have 10 minutes to tell us about your project, and at the beginning of the 10 minutes, please give your name and address for our records.
My name is Joseph Sammartino. I'm an architect with DPJ Design. An address, you said? I live in Frederick, Colorado. Yeah. So I really, well, thank you for hearing us. And I want to just speak quickly about the administrative adjustment request. There are really 6 elements that are driving our request for that adjustment. 2 of those are comments from site development plan, and planning. The first is the building is, because of where it's located with the 100-year flood, the flow line is such that the building essentially is up on a plinth, a concrete plinth, to have the front entry be out of the flood zone. Doing that already starts us at a higher level, so it impacts the elevation towards the alley as well. That then part of transportation's review was that we needed to accommodate a 26-foot box truck. Not that we ever intend to utilize a 26-foot box truck, but that's mandated by code, planning code. So because of that, we had to maintain a certain building height to allow that truck to come underneath it as well. So that starts us again at a higher level. So now we got two whammies against us. Then we had one comment from the RNO, the Registered Neighborhood Organization, requested that along the alley, there's quite a bit of vagrancy. And that it would be beneficial if there were eyes on the street, they said. So that element weighed heavy into our mind and said, well, it would be beneficial to have patios and terraces along that street to have that presence. And then the three real reasons that relate back to the landmarks are one, it's four-sided architecture. We're trying to also create a presence along that alley that's not back of house. We're trying to give it a facade and a character. It's establishing a base and creating a datum that's prominent along that alley as well, and then the horizontal banding and the detailing of a cornice at the top to provide a top of wall. So those are the three elements that relate back to this group. Other than that, I simply state that I know some concern is about the occupancy and the number of people that might be on those terraces. There are 6 private balconies that are there. These are efficiency dwelling units. We're not anticipating large numbers of people there. And there is a central amenity space. It's a small living room. The entire balcony in that location is 200 square feet. So that's not, it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. It's once you put furniture and so forth on that, we're thinking less than 10 people once you put the furniture and plantings. So all said and told, it's not a heavy occupied. It's enough to have eyes on street, people present, have some activity along the alley, but it's not gonna be masses. That's the best way to describe that. So I think
Is it?
that sums it up. Yep.
Okay, great. Let's see if anybody has any questions for you. Commissioners, questions for the applicant? Gary, did you want to follow up? on your
No, I
question?
think you understand what was going on.
Great. No questions?
No.
Well done,
Thank you.
wrapped up. Okay, great. Okay, then let's go to public comments for design review. I first will ask if there's anybody here in person that wants to give a comment, and then everybody gets 2 minutes. And for any of you joining us virtually to speak, you can click on the hand raise button on Zoom, or you can dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if you're joining us by phone. And if you're emailing us, you can email us at landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty with either the hand raise options. Everybody gets 2 minutes to provide your comment, and the 2 minutes should start with your name and address. Anybody here? Questions, comment? Keith?
But I think we also, are you gonna speak, Ashley?
Oh, we have time for everybody.
I'll decide, go ahead.
I don't know that Ashley is
Yeah,
gonna
you go
speak.
ahead.
Okay, speak.
Well, Keith, you know the routine.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time and your review of this project. My name is Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street. I am the chair of the Welton Street Historic Cultural District, as well as the chair of the Curtis Park Neighbors Design Review Committee. This is in the Welton Street Historic District. It does abut Curtis Park Neighbors Design Review historic piece. The Five Points bid is the RNO, as the primary RNO for this design is where it resides. There were concerns about having activation in this alley. It is an urban context and there are garages. There are also ADUs that have been built onto this. And so those ADUs do not have balconies, even though there are new ADUs that are allowed to have balconies. These were done prior to that. So there are not a lot of eyes on the street, nor are there a lot of neighbors that would be impacted by this. And so the bid really felt concerned by having active eyes on this space. And again, as the applicant said, these are small spaces, and having crimes of opportunities deterred by having people have eyes on the street does help significantly improve the safety of the corridor. This, as Becca stated, is a great design element, and I do commend the applicants for actually considering 4 sides of this building in their design. And this parapet wall does articulate that design element that is found within the district, and that is that of a parapet articulation that is very common both in the Welton Street district as well as the Curtis Park district, which you're both very familiar with. So it is great to actually see applicants consider 4 sides of architecture, because there are neighbors that do walk down this, and it does address like a more public space. It does feel like it's a cared for alley, and again, adds to that additional safety piece. Curtis Park neighbors did not review this particular design detail. They did present to the Curtis Park neighbor RNO as a part of their phase 1. The design review committee did not review it as a DRC because they did present to the overall neighborhood. So great, thank you, and we do wish you to approve the administrative adjustment and the design.
Thanks. Did you wish to? Okay, all right. Please start your 2 minutes with your name and address.
Thank you. This is Ashley Albright, 32nd and Champa Street, and from January of 23 to recently, a member of the Curtis Park Design Review Committee. This application for administrative adjustment should be denied or continued on the grounds that the protected district of Curtis Park RNO has not been notified of this phase 1 or 2 in 10 months. My filed memo at issue is not a mere 2 feet, but what that 2 feet does, which is to convert an unusable space into a legal party deck with Curtis Park ADUs and backyards mere feet away from what will bring noise, smoke, and intrusion. There is already deck space planned for these upper stories, so there is no need for additional eyes on the street, a new euphemism for decks equal money. Landmark staff has been sending notices to CPN RNO Design Review Chair Keith Pryor's personal email. Notice to one guy's personal email is not notice to the CPN RNO Protected District. My memo states the CPN Protected District has been damaged by the concealment of information known by certain CPN board and chairs to their detriment, as the community has been blocked from required information and participation with potential property damage. That is one definition of fraud, should a court, a state regulator, or city auditor determine. This commission cannot facilitate deceptive, harmful gatekeeping by a couple of people in charge of all the information. Who's at fault? Developer, Pryor, Landmark, not the CPN community directly affected by these decisions on this alley. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. All right, anybody else here in person wish to make a comment? Okay, doesn't look like it. Do we have anybody? We have 2 hands up that I see. Is that Eileen? First person.
Eileen, you should be able to unmute yourself, and if you want to turn on your camera, do that as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Oh,
Yes,
hi.
hi, my name is Eileen Feltman. I live on the 2500 block of Arapahoe Street. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can. Continue, please.
I am opposed to the administrative adjustment for the additional 2 feet at the required 27-foot setback that would allow for 3rd-story units facing the alley to have outdoor terraces. Terraces at this height would intrude upon the privacy and enjoyable use of the properties in the protected district on the easterly side of the alley, which are the even-numbered homes along the 2800 block of California Street. I do not want this to set a precedent along the alley between Welton and California Streets. I would not want this intrusion into my backyard if I were in a similar situation. The applicants state that these terraces are needed in part to provide eyes on the street. However, there are several other terraces at other heights facing the alley that can provide this. I'm requesting that the commission deny this request because it's really for the purpose of providing extra terrace space and extra outdoor living space for those units. I am requesting that the commission deny this unless they actually have a majority of written and oral testimony from the actual residents and owners of those homes on the easterly side of California Street that clearly state that they are aware that the administrative adjustment would allow the terraces that would not otherwise be built and that they are full in support. I do believe there needs to be support, full proof of support in writing directly from those specific affected neighbors. Also, on the alley side, I would like to see the use of brick extend beyond the first 2 stories. I would like to see similar size brick or other type cast materials that actually go up to that full 4th-story height or up to that 51-foot height as opposed to those panels. So anyway, those are my 2 concerns, and I thank you for my time.
Well, thank you, Eileen.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye. We had one other hand up. Okay, great. Stephen. Hey, Stephen?
Sorry, this is Stephen.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, you can, you'll have 2 minutes and please start with your name and address.
Good. My name is Stephen Bennett and I live at 676 29th Street. It is the back half of the Queen Anne Victorian duplex on the corner of 29th and Welton. That would be the north end of this alley in question. I walk this alley 2 to 4 times a day as I work on Welton Street. And I submitted a letter of support, and I just want to reiterate some of the things I mentioned in there. Additionally, in my letter, there are 6 row homes immediately to the south of my home, and I received 4 signatories of those 6 owners who joined in my letter of support. Directly behind the project, there's 5 homes. As Mr. Pryor mentioned, there are 3 ADUs, and the 2 new ones under construction do not have balconies. They've got small, tiny windows in the top. The furthest north house has a garage. There's only 1 yard that could be visible from these rooftop terraces. Additionally, in the letter, I mentioned that I personally have taken upon myself to be responsible for 2/3 of this alley the last 4 years by cleaning up trash, removing illegally discarded articles, and encouraging the homeless from setting up tents. So I do agree with the assessment that having more visibility on the alley is a positive thing. And I personally am not concerned about the potential noise from the rooftop terraces. Additionally, prior to moving in the neighborhood, I lived in apartments for 5 years in Uptown and Union Station area. And I think that having terraces, roof decks, whatever you want to call them, is a very valuable for tenants space. And I'm personally not concerned, as I mentioned, about trash, noise, or smoke from the rooftop terraces. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. All righty. Is there anybody else? I didn't see any other hands. Doesn't look like it in person either. Okay, great. Staff, did you have any?
I have some clarifications based on the RNO design review process. So to be a design review RNO, you must be a registered RNO with the city. The registration period occurs December through January, and then once again in July. Every year after the December through January period, we as Landmark staff look at all RNOs who have registered with the city to determine which RNOs have the tightest boundary to each and every one of our historic districts and make a list of primary RNOs and referral RNOs. For 5 Points, the primary RNO is the 5 Points Business District, and the referral RNO is Curtis Park. Many RNOs organize themselves their own way, and we don't interfere with how those RNOs organize. And many RNOs have design review committees in which the main point of contact is different from the president of the neighborhood organization RNO. So it is pretty standard that there is a different point of contact listed on our design review RNO referral list. Keith has been our contact for several years, but prior to that was Sue Glassmacher. Neither of those persons are the president of the Curtis Park RNO, and to my knowledge have not been the president of the Curtis Park RNO, but we as landmark staff don't get involved with how the RNOs operate. We just require them to attend a yearly training every year to maintain their status as a design review RNO. So that's just a little bit of background on how that process works. And then in terms of the setback, I just want to clarify that if you, the commission, does not approve the setback, they can still pursue that through the Board of Adjustment. However, we as staff are recommending approval of that encroachment today. So those are just two clarifications I wanted to make.
Any questions first?
Can you explain the difference between primary and referral RNOs?
So primary RNOs and referral RNOs do get a 3-week timeframe to comment on phase 1 of infill construction. We do not refer phase 2 to either the primary or secondary RNO. The biggest difference is that if the primary RNO wants to meet with the applicant within that 3-week period, the applicant is required to meet with that RNO. Referral RNOs, you do not have to meet with the referral RNO, so that is not required by the applicant. But again, as this is a phase 2, we would not have referred this phase 2 to any RNO, primary or secondary. Our notification period is 1 week as defined by our ordinance when we post our agendas.
One other clarification, this is a phase 2. So can you remind us if balconies were part of the balconies at this level were part of the phase 1 that was approved?
I mean, that's more of a question for Crystal, so I'll let her answer in a second.
They're-
But I will also say that we typically don't get into the level of detail for balconies until the phase 2 review.
Oh, sorry. Are you specifically saying for the 3rd floor?
Exactly.
Okay.
Because I understand the issue of the code issue of the height, which is one of the problems. So my question is, were balconies shown in the phase 1? Was outdoor space shown in phase 1?
Let me pull that up. I think it slightly changed at the back because in the phase 1, they had originally had street parking at the alley. And they got rid of that based on comments from the RNO. And so it changed the rear design slightly. But let me pull it up and make sure. Level 3 did have terraces though. And I have that at the phase 1 if you want me to bring it over.
That would be great. So the terraces were shown. This means anything to anybody else, but they were shown in the phase.
I'm gonna pull up the phase 1.
Yeah,
Here
thank
on
you.
my computer, so the audience and
Thank you so much.
everyone can see, but just give me a second to do that. But if there are any more questions for Crystal.
Any other questions for Crystal while we get set up?
Almost
So I'm showing on the screen for everyone attending the meeting, the phase one submittal, third floor plan, level 3.
Thank you. Sure. Any other questions? Brittany, Crystal, thank you. Okay, great. Then there are no more questions. Then let's go into deliberation. Commissioners, what do you think? Our purview, of course, we have to remember is, does this meet guidelines? It's not necessarily the safety or the quiet or that kind of thing.
Or the program, the use of it, right?
Correct.
To me, this seems very much like we've had other cases where there have been setbacks that require an administrative adjustment because there is some kind of utility line.
Yeah.
And we have done this actually, I think in Curtis Park, there's a whole neighborhood in which we adjusted the setback. And in this case, because of the floodplain, it seems to me it's somewhat a very similar situation where the building is higher to deal with the floodplain situation, and that's what's pushing the guardrail up. And since in phase one, we knew that there were that those balconies were there, to me, it's a very similar situation. So I'm in favor of approving the administrative adjustment.
All right, yeah, thank you. Gary.
I think I'm in favor as well because it meets the guidelines. I think what I object to, it's gonna, this notion of eyes on the street. It's an alley, and people on those decks are not gonna see the alley because of, they'd have to hang over the railing to do that. So it's, I guess my consternation about this is using a good urban principle to justify something which really isn't going to address the urban principle. That doesn't, I think, detract from the fact that phase one, we saw the decks, and I do think that the administrative adjustment is going to be necessary to keep the design as a whole. I like the idea that the building was designed as four-sided, at least for the first 2 stories. I think that's a good move. And because of that, I think I'm going to support the recommended motions.
Gary, thank you. Erica.
I'd just like to add on to Gary's comment that, design guidelines 4.22 and 23 talk about incorporating articulation techniques from the front all around the building, which is what we're seeing here. So I think in that case, this is very much meeting the design guidelines.
Oh, that's a good point. Thanks, Erica. George?
No further comments.
The design, I think staff did an excellent job. I think the guidelines are met with proviso of the inset of the windows. And other than that, I can certainly support this.
All right. Larry, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the other commissioners. I think it's good for us to acknowledge that it is a tricky area because, there are, for good reasons, a bunch of rules around not impeding on the privacy of other people's backyards and single-family districts. I think this is kind of a case of, it's a single-family district up against a very different kind of district. And so I think it's a little bit of a different story there than it would be if it were, all single-family along the same alley. So I support staff.
All right, great.
I think,
Gary.
I wanted to, I think this is really, it's not a Landmark Preservation Commission issue. It's an issue of how neighbors deal with development and how the developers of this property need to maintain the kind of controls over their occupants that doesn't make their development disturbing to the neighborhoods that they're in. And that would be true anywhere in the city. Neighbors need to talk to neighbors to make sure that they are good neighbors.
I wish that was up to the Landmark Commission, right?
No.
No, actually, no, stay out of that. All right, commissioners, if somebody wants to make a motion, that'd be great. Remember, we wanted to put the condition in about the 2-inch setback. Anybody want to take a stab at it?
I mean,
Do you have,
One of the
I-
conditions.
do you have any comments on the design details specifically, as we did hear one public comment about the brick on the rear facade? And I don't,
Oh, that's true.
just to cover our
She
bases.
wished that they would have the brick on the,
Well, that would kind of require all four sides of the upper floors is what is being
Yeah.
asked for there, which is a substantial design change, as I understand it. I don't think, if we agree with that, I think we'd be looking at a denial because we'd want to see redesign.
I was recommending we discuss the design details, as it's not just an administrative adjustment today.
That's a good point.
I mean, my take on the brick, the levels of the brick are that it seems that the goal is to kind of have a quieter and maybe lower profile appearance to the alley side. And so to me, it makes sense that that brick would be, the first 2 or 3 stories there, and then transition into a lighter material, whereas on the street side, yeah, it makes sense that it would be a bit bigger presence.
That's a good point, Larry. Anybody else concerned about that?
No, I'm satisfied with everything as they presented it.
Excellent. Shall I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve with conditions application number 2024-COA-198 for the Phase 2 design details at 2821 Welton Street as per the 5 Points Historic Cultural District Design Standards and Guidelines 4.5, 4.21 through 4.30, 4.34, 4.37 through 4.38, 4.4, 4.42 through 4.50, 4.52, 5.18 through 5.19, 5.23, 5.24, 5.67, 5.68, character defining features for the 5 Points Historic Cultural District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following condition. 1, that all windows have a minimum 2-inch inset. I further move that the Landmark Preservation Commission find that conforming with the zoning standard for the encroachment into the upper story setback at the 27-foot 0-inch height restriction along the alley would have an adverse impact on the historic character of the 5 Points and Curtis Park historic districts for the proposed infill structure per section 12.4.5.2B of the Denver zoning code for application number 2024-COA-198 at 2821 Welton Street.
Nick, thank you. I hear a second.
I'll second.
Eric, I think Erica seconded it. All right. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, it has been unanimously approved. Thanks very much, everybody. All right, on to our next, so we have no more design review projects. We have 2 business items. These are items for the commission to deliberate and vote on. The chair will announce each business item on the agenda. The staff will introduce the business item. Commissioners can question the staff. Public comment period for the business for these items will be 2 minutes per person. If you would like to speak regarding a specific project and you are not part of that applicant team, please click the hand raise button. For those of you calling via phone, star 9 to raise your hand, and if you are having difficulty with either of those options, email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number. Staff can clarify if necessary, the commission will deliberate, and then the commission will make a motion and vote. Our first business item is the Denver Nurses Home National Register nomination amendment, and Becca is our staff person. Hi, Becca.
Hello, good afternoon, Commission. Thank you so much. I thought I'd also just let you know, you will be seeing a lot of National Register nominations coming forward in the next 2 years. History Colorado is working on a initiative called Heritage for All, which is trying to designate, I believe, 150 sites across Colorado. Many of those will be in Denver. And trying to increase the diversity of the the national and state landmarks we have here in Colorado. So you'll see me and Matt here a lot. We have 3 for you next time, so get ready for that. But just wanted to let you know why there's a tick and increase in seeing our shining faces. So the first business item before you today is a review of the National Register of Historic Places nomination amendment for the Denver Nurses Home. In accordance with Colorado's Certified Local Government Guidelines, nominations and amendments to the National Register of Historic Places must be presented to the local Historic Preservation Commission for review and comment. LPC reviewed the Denver Nurses Home National Register nomination on September 5th, 2023. So this may have looked familiar. At that time, you all recommended that the nomination be forwarded to the keeper of the National Register with the comment that the nomination be expanded to include criterion A and areas of significance in health and medicine and social history, women's history. Based on the commission's recommendation and discussions with Landmark staff, History Colorado staff began working on an amendment to the National Register nomination to expand the scope of significance for the site. At the time, the only significance they had called out had been architecture as an example of colonial revival work. And during this research, staff discovered important connections to not only women's history, but ethnic history. The amendment to the National Register nomination before you today amends the significance criterion to include criterion A, social history for women's history, and criterion A, ethnic history for Asian American and Pacific Islander history. As a result of the addition of these areas of significance, the amendment expands the nomination period of significance from 1924 through 1967. This updated period of significance encompasses the building's date of construction and its use by the University of Colorado School of Nursing until the new campus was built in 1967. This amendment illustrates that the Denver's Nurses Home was significant under criterion A for women's history as a location where many women made important contributions to the advancement of women in medicine, science, and society. The period of significance begins in 1924 when the Nurses Home opened on the campus. And with the acknowledgement that the University of Colorado's nursing program was unique in the Rocky Mountain West and was ahead of its time in legitimizing the profession of nursing as an academic and career pursuit. During the 1920s through the 1960s, the School of Nursing continuously transformed and evolved to provide new and innovative approaches to medicine, including new degrees, areas of study, and the development of the first nurse practitioner program. Sorry, I'm just trying to change the slide. There we go. The Nurses Home is also significant under criterion A, ethnic history for Asian American and Pacific Islander history. It was the location that provided a safe educational space for Japanese American women during the era of World War II's anti-Japanese policy and social movement. The period of significance begins in 1942 when the School of Nursing's interim director, Henrietta Adams Lagrange, began transferring Japanese American students from the University of Washington to the University of Colorado School of Nursing. And the period of significance ends in 1945 when World War II ended and the internment of Japanese Americans ended. Under Colorado Governor Ralph Carr's policies, these transfers protected students from university expulsion and the unjust relocation to internment camps. This historic event made the University of Colorado and the School of Nursing unique in the Western United States during World War II. The legacy of justice and protection for Japanese American students made the School of Nursing a desirable and safe place for many who went on to make significant medical contributions and advancements. So based on this additional information provided by History Colorado, we are recommending that the commission forward the nomination to the keeper.
Thank you, Becca. Does staff or commissioners, do you have any questions for Becca?
Interesting.
I know, it is. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, excellent. So public comment is next. So we are now, would be accepting any public comments for this item. If you are joining us virtually, you can click the hand raise button in Zoom. Dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if you're joining by phone. If you're emailing us, you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty with either hand raise option. Let me see, Keith, did you want to make a comment on this project?
I'll just make it from over here. Great job. Great presentation. I think this is amazing. And I wanted to congratulate you guys also for 60 landmark districts that got passed last night. So congratulations. The work you guys do is amazing. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Keith. All right, is there anyone joining us virtually that would like to make a comment? I don't see any hands raised. All right, great. Thanks, everybody. Shall we deliberate? What do you think, guys?
What an amazing piece of history.
It's very interesting. I know. I thought that was really interesting and it's good to know.
And certainly worthy of all of the factors that it has to qualify for. I'd be supporting it.
Yeah, and my hope is that when the site is interpreted, because the reason it's there is gone.
Yeah, I know.
And that some history of that site be portrayed, but that's beyond the nomination.
And
Hats
narrator
off.
winners, I better.
Hats
Hey,
off to
Larry?
Erica, who I think was the one who recommended that, if I recall
Oh,
correctly, that they did further
yeah.
research into the.
I think it probably was following up on staff's recommendations,
Okay.
but yeah, for sure.
Hats off to staff then as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Knowing that there was more to that story, yeah. what
Yeah,
your
that's a huge
treasure
part of
trove
that story, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it just goes to show that it's important to look beyond what a building looks like and how it's architecturally or not important, that there's all kinds of stories that are there that we need to kind of recognize, so.
All of the cultural history is more important than the architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
especially at
case
this
for
point.
sure.
Yeah.
All right, then do I hear a motion from the floor?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to recommend that the amendment, to the National Register nomination for the Denver Nurses Home at 871 Bel Air Street be forwarded to the keeper of the National Register of Historic Places for the presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided to the staff report.
George, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Gary has seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? All right, it has passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Becca. All right, so Matt is next. Our next business item is fire station number 3, and this is a National Register nomination. And Matt, tell us all about it.
Can you turn on the screen, Matt? Can you turn on the video screen?
Were you asking me to? Oh, start video.
There you go.
I'm here today to discuss the fire station number 3 National Register nomination. It is already designated as a local landmark. The ordinance passed in 1994. Fire station number 3 is significant at the local level under criterion A for association with events leading to the creation and strengthening of 5 Points as a Black community. From
1897, when Silas Johnson was promoted to captain, to 1958, when Denver Fire Department was integrated. Engine number 3 was the first and only all-black crew in Denver and the only destination for Black men who wanted to become firefighters in Denver during the period. Fire Station number 3, completed in 1931, would serve as the home of engine number 3, surviving constant threats of closure by the city, inoperable hand-me-down equipment from other stations, and attacks on the hegemony of 5 Points for the Black community by redevelopment of blighted areas, to become the longest operating station for the Denver Fire Department. Fire Station number 3 served not only as a firehouse, but as a foundation of the community during the economic decline of 5 Points, where the firehouse crew repaired cars, cut hair, anything to assist, according to Chief Rod Junio, the first Black fire chief for Denver Fire Department. The 5 Points community has rallied behind Fire Station number 3 multiple times to keep it open, ultimately becoming the only operating fire station in 5 Points today. Fire Station number 3 is significant at the local level under Criterion C as the work of master architect Charles Francis Pillsbury. Pillsbury was known for his incorporation of modern styles for public buildings. In the 1920s, Pillsbury was a member of the Architects Small House Service Bureau, an organization of architects which provided designs for small houses, an association which may have influenced his design of this building. In 1937, Pillsbury designed fire station numbers 11 and 14 as WA projects, as well as station number 20. Station number 3, a predecessor of Pillsbury's other fire stations, exhibits the labor-intensive design details of later public works projects. Pillsbury was a member of the Allied Architects Association, which designed Denver's city and county building. Pillsbury joined with G. Meredith Music and Earl Chester Morris to design the 1941 Denver Police Administration building at 1245 Champa Street. He was co-architect of the State Capitol Annex building and architect for several Denver elementary schools in the 1950s. Fire Station number 3 is also significant at the local level under Criterion C as an example of a Spanish bungalow. Built in 1931, Fire Station number 3 is a one-story and one-engine firehouse and constructed in the Spanish bungalow style, which was popular during the 1920s and 30s, although not a typical style for firehouse design. Spanish bungalow style is seen in Fire Station number 3's terracotta clay roof, pitched roof in front, gabled parapets to represent low-pitched clay tiled roofs, and window pairings with brick arch details. All these features and the uniqueness of the style in Denver make Fire Station number 3 a well-preserved example of Spanish bungalow. Most firehouses from the time in large cities such as Denver were built as two-story buildings, and Pillsbury's other firehouses in Denver are two-story designs. When the firehouse was designed and constructed, efforts were made to connect firehouse architecture with the surrounding structures and the community at large. In 1931, the neighborhood was largely bungalow houses and one or two-story commercial buildings. While there are no other Spanish bungalows around the firehouse, the one-story building fits in with the smaller brick homes originally surrounding it during this period. Staff's recommendation is for the National Register nomination to be forwarded to the keeper of the National Register for meeting National Register criteria A and C at the local level of significance.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Matt? No? Okay, great. Do we have any public comments?
Yes,
I'm so surprised.
I walk by this at least once a week. It's an amazing piece of architecture and cultural history, critical to 5 Points. This is just an amazing story. the men, the firefighters that have been there, the Black cultural history of this building is irreparable, and it just cannot be lost. And it's so exciting to see this move forward. So definitely support as an individual. So thank you for your consideration. It's a great building. Love it.
For the record, that was Keith Pryor.
Yes.
All right, Keith, thank you. Anybody online? It doesn't look like it. No, I don't see any hands raised. All right, commissioners, let's, or staff, did you have anything else? Okay, commissioners, let's deliberate. What do you think? I'll be honest, I thought it was already on the National Register. I was totally surprised to see this because I also walk by it all the time and just kind of assumed. that
It's
they were
amazing
local.
detail.
Yeah.
It's a fabulous building.
Fighting fire station.
I think it, yeah, with the history, I think it easily, I personally feel that it easily fits.
I absolutely agree with staff.
Okay. Erica?
I fully agree too. This is going to come off as very nitpicky. There's a few references to the governor quoted as David Waite, and he's actually Davis Waite. So I would just like to recommend that the staff, not Denver staff, but History Colorado staff preparers correct that, just because that's his actual name.
No, that's great. Thank you. There are very few people that would actually have noticed that. Erica, but you did.
I just happen to know him, so that's the only reason why I picked that up. But yes, clearly meets all of the criteria and areas of significance that the nomination talks about, so I fully support it.
All right.
And I also think Pillsbury probably did a few more fire stations than the ones that were listed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they did Engine House 5.
Yeah.
He did a lot of county courthouses too that weren't fully explored, but that's fine.
All right, do I hear a motion?
I'll move to recommend that the National Register nomination for Fire Station number 3 at 2500 North Washington Street be forwarded to the keeper of the National Register of Historic Places per presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report, with the suggestion that Davis Waite's name be corrected.
Second.
And Gary has seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All righty, thank you very much. It's on its way. All right, are there any other, there are no more business items. Do we have any other items to discuss, discussion items?
I just wanted to poll the commission on attendance for the May 7th meeting, as we will likely be having an owner opposed designation coming forward that day. So if you are available for that meeting and able to attend, if you could just raise your hand now, that would be
I'm always
helpful.
ready for a good scrap.
May 7th.
May 7th, too bad.
I assume I will be,
I'm available. I'm not sure
Yes, we're
about
not-
my, I'm
I
not sure
know,
about my
exactly.
conflicts of
That.
interest status.
Yes.
Do you have a conflict of interest?
No,
Okay,
And I don't know if I do or don't.
well, we can talk that out with Adam.
Okay.
For sure. Are you able to attend? Larry?
I'm just not gonna be in town.
Okay.
I'm not either, Erica.
Okay, thank you. I'm just making sure we have quorum
It's gonna be me and
in
Ann.
advance of the meeting. And then I have nothing else.
I have
for
nothing else.
today.
Anything else for the good of the order then? All right, then I am concluding today's meeting of the Landmark Commission, and it is or no, I guess it's 2:07. Right to my watch. Everybody have a good afternoon.